Hey, left, right, out. So Friday, September 24th, and we are looking at some interesting developments. So we'll start with economic stuff. Everything's kind of flat. But here's the thing, like I said yesterday, when it comes to all this mania about the Fed, watch the 10-year, watch that bond market. You're seeing the 10-year kind of spike. Normally these type of moves in historical terms, these type of moves that we just seen pretty much overnight, those are big moves in the treasury market. But now within the last, 10, 20 years, they're kind of normal. They're not nobody bats an eye. It doesn't seem like when you have the bond market moving up, whatever, 5 basis point, or not 5 basis points, but whatever it's up, from one, I think it was like 1.3 something yesterday. It's at 1.45, almost 1.46 on the 10-year. It's like 5 bips or whatever they call it. I can't even remember. I'm trying to get out of this stuff, but when you see those type of moves, it used to be a pretty big deal. Now it seems like nobody bats an eye, but you're seeing it edge up, and they say, well, it's because they're worried about the Fed taper. What did I tell you yesterday? If they start tapering, you're going to see pressure on those markets because that's where they are the market, essentially, a large part of it. So you're removing tens of billions of dollars from that market, and bonds are inversely proportional to the rate, the prices. So as the price goes up, the interest rate goes down. Because they have a coupon. But we won't get into that. That's neither here nor there at the moment. But more alarming, you got oil moving. I mean, it's over $74 a barrel, which that really hurts people at the pump. That's one of those things. That's one of those assets that are, one of the initial, it's looked as an asset that more dollars chasing in there, and little bumps of supply or whatnot. Those moves are exacerbated. That is the symptom of an inflationary environment. The other thing was really big is China. China had already banned crypto mining for the most part, which is not a big deal. Those guys move, they'll move elsewhere, but they've now officially banned transactions with cryptocurrencies. And you got everybody out there saying it's pretty much a dying, it's going to kill the crypto market. I don't think so. This is going to shake out a lot of guys, but there's going to be room for crypto. I'll tell you that. They can't track it, but that also means that's why they're fearful of it. You could actually track it, but it's harder to track than having everybody on a bank account. It's easier because you make those bank or those institutions report back to you, kind of like what we're seeing over here. It's easier to track people. It's easier to track transactions that are, they must be reported to you. If you need to, you can develop profiles of people if you really wanted to off of, that's one of the reasons you should start using cash a lot more, or use cryptocurrency, but cash, transacting in real, something you can feel in your hand, in my opinion, because, this is one of the next steps is once they get everybody using, it is essentially a ledger system with digital currency already. The dollar is, because whenever you use, your bank card, you're pretty much a ledger system going back and forth. But anyway, you could use that to profile people. This is one step Chinese government's doing. They don't want this outside of their purview of control. So they crack down on this. But will that stop it? I don't think so. I think that people will continue to use it because how are they going to monitor it? Yeah, they could probably pull the ledger system, but how are you going to? The next thing there is, depending on how many people have their wallets on maybe a phone, I could see how somehow you'd have the technology to get in their phone and be able to identify wallets possibly, and then you can go through there if the Chinese government really wanted to get down into it. I can see that, but there's ways around it. These guys, that's only part of the market there. So we'll see what happened. A lot of the guys that bashed crypto in the beginning, I mean, to be honest, I was kind of one of them, but now I've seen it, not in terms of that it's real money like a gold or a silver, but I see it as a better form of a dollar. What do we see now? A digital currency. I see it as a better form of it. One, it's finite, but two, you get the same ability to move money around, but without the same ties to you, I guess, the overt personal information that's out there. So I see the functionality of it, especially when you're moving. So hypothetically, this is the one that really sent me over. Let's say that you have to leave the U.S., right? You have to get out of here. You know what? When you go to report, like you want to, or you go to report something, like, and you don't want the government really to find you. Essentially, you have to, if you whatever, get rid of your citizenship, or you're going to go somewhere else. You essentially have to pay a tax to get out of here. You just can't leave. You're in a prison if you don't realize that, but pay a tax on that to get out of here. But let's say also you want to get on the plane, you just want to take cash or whatever. You don't really trust the banking institutions or whatever the case may be. You can't take more than some X amount of dollars on a plane or this or whatnot, and you don't want to be tracked doing that. So you use crypto to get out of there. If things get really bad, you'll really see that. So if you want to get out of the country, you might not be able to take your assets or anything. But if you have them in crypto, you just simply fly over there and you have the keys to your wallet, and you can then exchange your crypto for whatever currencies, wherever the case may be. I don't know, but I didn't really explain it that well, but somebody was talking about that, and I was like, yeah, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. Especially when you can just flick the bank account can pretty much push a button and close your access to your account down. And I've had that happen, and I can't remember if it happened when I was overseas once, but I've had it happen where there's a fraud detection, and then you're pretty much, thank God I had like regular cash, otherwise I'd be stuck somewhere in the middle of the US, trying to get home. But that's just one instance. Anyway, the crypto market, I think it's here to stay. Pretty good opportunities are going to be had here to get in, and pretty favorable prices and different, which I'm not going to give any advice on what cryptos to go into, but that's you need to do your own research on that. So once again, they have that story is finally there's some people pushing back on the Border Patrol whipping thing, which the guy was using his reins. Even the photographer now is out saying that he's defending the officers, but a lot of people that have no experience, have no idea what they're talking about, is acting like they're whipping people with these reins. It's I guess the best way to equate is like a steering wheel for a horse. But regardless of that, it's now apparently the Border Patrol are not going to be able to be on horseback, which using horses, one, is traditional for the Border Patrol, but two, it's advantageous in certain situations when it comes to apprehending people, when it comes to patrolling certain areas that are inaccessible to normal vehicles. Even running around with ATVs and whatnot, yeah, that's okay, but there's other things they can't go into some of the terrain that horses can. They're not as maneuverable as horses. They're also prone to you got to have gas or whatever. If something goes wrong, then you're kind of stuck out there. Usually horses are a little more reliable. The chances of one just dying on you out there is pretty slim. They're usually pretty sure-footed, especially the way these horses are trained. So there's a lot of advantages to using a horse. There's a reason why they use a horse on horseback, and two, it also is a more stealthy way of getting into areas and not giving away your position. So an ATV or whatnot, UTVs, they're inherently loud, and in a lot of these places you're going to be using the gas version. I know there's electric versions, but more than likely for reliability reason you're going to be using a gas version. They're loud. I've seen it myself down on the border where with vehicles, when they're driving vehicles, the illegal immigrants, they're not stupid, or the coyotes are, they're not stupid. They listen and then they wait for them to go by and they cross, right? Or they have lookouts. Horses allow you to be a little more stealthy and get in the areas where you can actually do something, So anyway, it's a big hit to them in my opinion. There's some other things I pulled up. So yeah, the Chinese thing. Okay, so on the Chinese thing, so this Evergrande thing is really starting to play out now. So this is a pseudo bankruptcy, no doubt about it. Now the Chinese have stepped in, and they're actually continuing the projects that Evergrande has had in place. And instead of scaling back on those projects and making sure that the creditors are made whole, who invested their money in this, they're actually prioritizing the projects and stiffen the creditors, which essentially means who's going to step in and invest in Evergrande from a private perspective or whatnot. So now you're essentially just relying on the government, and the government is actually now running the operations are the ones that step in and prioritize these projects. So essentially, it's a bankruptcy and a takeover. In my opinion, that's what it is. Now, granted, the Chinese are always have an interest in any company that they have running that's in their country, but this seems like possibly a little bit more of a step, more of a acceleration in that than they have in other institutions within their borders. So it's kind of a nationalization on a number of regards of their real estate market. In a sense, this is a step, right? And we'll see how that plays out. Usually not good. Maybe they can keep that train on the tracks for a little while longer from us, basically funding that whole operation over there. So that's interesting. So we go from there. There's some, the booster shots are now being pushed by the CDC. Now, it was majority in line with what the FDA was saying, that for a certain age group over. But what the CDC director did is she kind of went above and beyond what her own advisor said and what the FDA said, and she said something about pretty much something about the people with dangerous jobs. I think what she say, something like that. It was some vague terminology which kind of leaves it to a level of interpretation that's beyond like the scope of politician, let's just say. And she should have narrowed that down in or high risk jobs. Like, okay, what's her definition of a high risk job, right? Is a teacher a high risk job? Is oil field worker a high risk job that would, so she gave out this, pretty much advice on who could take it. So I don't know how that's going to play out. This is what we're talking about with some of the inconsistencies of the policies. It's like when you come out with something that's like, how about you have like somebody read over it, or somebody competent, maybe somebody doesn't agree with you, or maybe somebody that just wasn't in whatever the situation room, if you will, and just so they can see that from an outside perspective, and maybe let's dial it in a little bit so we don't have this ambiguity of interpretation when this kind of advice comes out, or these recommendations. And because this is what happens too. So there's people that do disagree with some of the policies from a scientific level, or I wouldn't say from a logic and reasonable level based on data points and some scientific methods. And then there's people that don't, because they see the inconsistencies in policies and the backtracking and no explanation why. Not saying that, hey, we were wrong here. There's no accountability for certain people. There's lying and stuff. So there's people that just don't trust, and then there's people that haven't. And there's both people. In some regards, that have an intelligent opposition, but then it's also based upon the lack of trust, lack of inconsistency of leadership. So that's why it's important to have good leaders, or in certain positions, especially key positions, if you can't get leadership throughout. But like I said, pay attention to the bond market. We'll see because this is interesting, because gold is pretty much flat. Silver, it's down, but like I said, I'm going to go into this a lot more in some other videos, like how gold and silver. If you're looking at short-term reverberations and thinking that gold's going to just blow its lid or whatever, it's not. This is a long-term play. Gold, those are manipulated markets. You can go look it up. How many times JP Morgan and HSBC and a number of other Deutsche Bank and whatnot have been fined for manipulating these markets. You can sell as many futures contracts on these things without actually having the physical asset. So it's crazy. And that's one of the things Wall Street Bets is going to try to do, was get enough people to buy the contracts and claim physical delivery and see if they actually had all the silver there. And we know they don't. But we know the exchange wouldn't have. I doubt they would have gone along with that, because they know what they're trying to do, and they would have squeezed the market if they had that kind of deep pockets. Those are huge markets, right? Big players, the biggest names in the game, because those physical assets there are they mean a lot, and a lot of people watch them. And over time, they've meant a lot. So that's crazy. Crazy. I don't even, there's so much out there. Like, I would love, another thing to look into is what's going on over there in Australia, a supposed free country, and some of their cities that are just completely locked down like you would not believe. People getting beaten. They're using their military of all things, which there's reason. That's one of the reasons we don't do that over here. Is just when you unleash a hammer and they start looking at everybody as a nail, and that's what this is. This is the beginning of something very nefarious in Australia. And hopefully, these people, especially the protesters there, that are, I guess they're calling them the orange vest now. Hopefully, they can stave off some of this. There needs to be something, even if it's a slight revolutionary coup over there. I hate to see Western countries that we are allies with treating it. It's almost the point now where, like, we have that deal that the French pulled their ambassador for, our little intel alliance there, and the Australians are now buying nuclear subs from us instead of France. It's almost to the point where I wouldn't do business with them if that's the way they're going to treat their people. But of course, this administration is kind of in line with that. They wish they had that power, in my opinion, to deploy the military and force everybody to get a vaccination and lock down certain areas. I feel like they're chomping at the bit, and we still have enough of the military where I doubt they'd ever enforce those type of orders. But man, we're getting closer and closer. Another thing is, and I'll leave it here, is Project Veritas has come out with this the Vera system. Pretty much, I would call it the Vera scandal because it's underreporting of adverse side effects. And we know that nothing is 100%. So anybody comes out there says it's 100%, anything's 100% safe. I don't care if you're taking Tylenol. Nothing's 100%. So it's just natural that you would have at least a certain amount of reports of adverse side effects. But there's also a study, I believe, was done by Harvard, that there's traditionally underreporting of adverse side effects in Vera, just for various reasons. Some of it, you don't even realize the side effect is related to that. I mean, there's a lot of things. You could probably Google that one and look into it a little bit more. I read it a while ago, but it's just traditionally underreported to begin with. But then you have on top of that a neglect, intentional underreporting of certain side effects, which is, even if you was to take an instance of the whistleblowers, let's say that they were honest or whatnot, you're still going to have a tremendous, in my opinion, there's going to be a tremendous minority of people that will have adverse side effects. But the fact that we're trying to hide even a small, minute number makes it that much more of an alarm for the average person that's hesitant to do so or take the vaccinations because, well, what are they actually hiding? If they're just upfront and honest, like, yeah, maybe it is, the 1 to 3% or whatever the case may be, it's still a significant number when you scale that. It's a significant number when you scale it up, but it's also odds wise, you've got a significant probability of just being okay. And some people can weigh that risk and make the decision. In fact, a lot of people would, probably take the vaccine if they just had proper reporting. But since there is stuff like this, it lends credibility to their hesitancy. I wish that the left or the progressives would realize that if you just be honest, chances are that people will make. It gives the people the ability to, one, trust the data that you're giving, trust the advice that you're giving them. But if you're just constantly, for your own agenda, break a few eggs, to make the omelet, the ends justify the means, then you get the skeptical people. And if they have right, you should always be skeptical. But you make them even more, and they can't verify whether they have, whether they're justified in their skepticism. And this is what you get. So anyway, I'll talk to you later. Peace.